been raining most of today, and it might do that again at any moment, but I wanted to get this video out to explain something to people because there's something important happening. And I put out an article earlier today that I think maybe some people didn't understand. It stirred a bit of controversy. Some people really liked it, some people really hated it. Most of the people who didn't like it were people whose opinions I really don't care about, but there were some people whose opinions I do care about who were upset by it. So I wanted to explain my reasoning in writing it and putting it out and why I feel it's so important. I think a lot of people saw that last night this guy Blake, what's his last name? Bednarz, something like that, Bednarz. I don't know this guy. This is a guy who I believe first showed up, as far as I know, around the Butler, PA time. And I don't remember anything specific about him. The reason I'm remembering he showed up around Butler, PA is because he just came back, last week or 2 weeks ago, and other people brought him to my attention. When I went to look at what he was doing, I had him blocked. And I could tell by the other people that were interacting with his account and sending it to me and things like that, that he was interested in Butler. And this is the guy who had appeared on Redacted about a week ago talking about drones. He got a lot of virality on his video about drones. And speaking of Redacted, thanks to Clayton and Natalie for having me on there tonight. I'm going to put that up on my X account. If people missed it, you can follow Redacted on X or follow me at JG_CSTT and check it out. And a lot of people, perhaps the uninitiated, might say, oh, people are saying this, by the way, and I'll address it. People are saying, oh, Jason, you're jealous that this guy is going viral talking about drones when you were talking about drones. So it's obviously jealousy. But that is not it. The reason why I feel this is an important topic and that I wanted to talk about it is because it is about social engineering. And that's important for people to understand, because I think a lot of viewers of Crowdsource the Truth would agree with the statement that what we're being told about the murder of Charlie Kirk is not true. And so this social engineering that I'm talking about, it's designed to further that deception, to prevent people from learning about what is or is not true. And it's very insidious in the way that it works. So let me explain how I've come to this conclusion that Mr. Blake, whatever his name is a social engineer. So again, he first came to my attention maybe a week or so ago, where people had seen that I put out a video about drones. It very quickly, that video got about 2.5 million views on my X account, and an account who I also don't know called Hustle Bitch put it out and got about 12 million views of my video showing the enlarged, what I believe is a drone. And I came to that conclusion by evaluating a number of different things that appeared in the sky in Adam Bartholomew's video. Adam Bartholomew, he's got a YouTube channel and an X account called Life is Driving. And I just saw his video on there the day Charlie Kirk was shot. He's the only person that I know of who was there doing a long-form live stream, the only, independent, non-university affiliated person. And he's certainly the only person I've seen who had put out the whole thing. People have already seen the videos I've done about these anomalies between the duration in Adam's live stream and then this 1 hour and 7 minute file that seemed to be the same, but was much longer. And I contacted Adam. He's a very open and normal guy. It says Adam Bartholomew on his Twitter and YouTube. I looked up his phone number on the internet. Nobody should bother Adam, but I'm just saying he's a regular person. He's not doing like heavy-duty OPSEC and trying to obscure where he is and what his real phone number is or what his real name is. Normal people are kind of easy to find when you go looking for them. So I called him up, and it's a little bit of a thing to call up somebody you don't know and start asking them about videos they've just made about a murder and everything, but we got into a conversation. I convinced him that I was also on the up and up. People have seen him on the show. Adam and I have developed what I would call a polite and professional relationship. He provided me with the video. My purpose in calling him was to ask him certain specific technical details, first of all about how the video was shot, and second of all about how the live stream failed. Everybody has seen that, how I surmised that UAVs seem to have utilized some sort of radio technology, quite probably a Bluetooth low energy exploit like that airborne exploit identified by Oligo IT Security. I believe these drones engaged in what you would call electronic warfare to neutralize his ability to communicate with the internet and to record that video. And I believe they did that because whoever it is that killed Charlie Kirk wanted to control the release of media so that you don't get to see anything that they don't want you to see. Okay, so that video comes out, it starts going viral. I identified drones. We saw Palmer Luckey insulting me and getting involved in the conversation in a way that I find very suspicious on its own. And he's saying, no, they're insects, they're birds, they're not drones, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. Then we started talking about this ISR spy plane. It's very interesting how that came up too. We'll come back to that. That ties to Blake as well. People might recall I did a video with John Cullen last Friday where he said, hey, somebody I don't know sent me this very interesting video about a spy plane. John was effusive with praise. We didn't know who this person was who was speaking on the video. He's talking about how he's tracking the plane by the ADS-B signal, the radar. You know, is obviously somebody who seems to know a lot about aviation. But then he referred to the plane as a Bombardier 6500. And that struck me as odd the first moment John said it to me, because the manufacturer is called Bombardier. And it was just strange to me that someone would be so knowledgeable about aviation that they'd know how to locate this data. But they've never heard of the manufacturer Bombardier. I mean, it's like if somebody had a channel about cars reviewing the Escalade and they kept referring to it as a Cadillac. You'd be like, wait a minute, does this guy know what he's talking about, or is this some idiot who's been handed a script? So it turns out the person on that video that John was sharing with me was Blake. And it's amazing because, you know, Blake went on Redacted last week and he told Clayton that he used artificial intelligence to locate anomalous dots. And he was very clear about saying, oh, it was easy to do because it was a clear blue sky and I just asked the AI to look for dots. Now, to a lay person at home who maybe hasn't used AI that much, or maybe even has, but not to do video processing and the types of things he's talking about, that makes sense. Clear sky, tell it to look for dots. Sounds like something it could do. But I immediately knew that was a lie, because I've done quite a lot with artificial intelligence, and all of the currently available commercial products, well, not all, but let's call it the three major ones, and they don't work in the way that he described. I'll get into more detail about that, but it just seemed clear to me that he was lying to Natalie and Clayton. And in fact, when he said he had found the drones, he was leading them to believe that he had contacted Adam Bartholomew, which he did, but he contacted Bartholomew after I did. And I don't want to speak for Adam, but he's told me some things about the way that Blake interacted with him that support my understanding of Blake's motives and basically everything that Blake does. Anyway, when Clayton said, oh, everyone in the chat is saying Jason Goodman found the drones, Blake's demeanor changed. He seemed nervous. He just seemed like he was lying to them. And he said he's identified 25 drones. He's putting out all these videos with little dots, and he says it's a drone, it's a drone, it's a drone. For a couple days, I was looking into every stupid dot that he found, And I had already looked through Adam's video. I was mostly concentrating on the portion of the video just before and just after Charlie got shot. And that's where I saw drones. I did scan through the whole thing. I was just using my eyes. Sat in a dark room, cleaned the screen with, some lens cleaning stuff, cleaned my glasses, and watched the video, 200% blow up, slow motion, and just went through, and that's how I did it. So I missed some of these 25 dots that he found, but I saw the ones that I thought were drones that people saw. The video I did with John, we went through there, and I said, oh, here's a massive blow up of a bird, here's a massive blow up of an insect, you can see the wings flapping, and here's something that's moving in a way that doesn't look like organic flight, doesn't appear to be flapping any wings, looks like a drone. We did an analysis. Then we went to another level and, analyzed the depth, the distance from the camera, the contrast on the subject, all kinds of different things, not just there's a dot, it's a drone. Anyway, I'm talking about all of this not to be like, oh, I'm better at finding drones than Blake, but I'm doing this because I believe that Blake's purpose is to distract people away from the true facts, to make you think that every dot in the sky is a drone, or at least for him to say that, and then later for somebody else to come forward and say, wait a minute, all those drone videos were false. These are all insects. And if we have 25 or 30 things that we're talking about as drones, and then somebody comes along and identifies 26 of them as insects, it's very easy to then say, see, all of that stuff was birds and insects. It's essentially the same thing I believe they had planned to do to Charles when I first met George Webb. That is, Peter Smith was trying to get Charles to accept 33,000 emails that Peter Smith said, hey, Charles, these are emails I got from Russian hackers, or that I'm trying to get. He didn't have them yet. He was trying to get Charles interested in receiving them, and Charles said, no, I don't want any kind of stolen anything. I only do things above board, on the up and up, because Charles has been involved in multi-million and probably even multi-billion-dollar deals where if you do anything wrong at all, your behavior and that deal will be scrutinized in a way that illegal or unethical activity could render the whole thing a failure. So he doesn't want stolen emails. He only wants legitimately obtained information from legitimate sources. And I believe that's the correct way to do things. As long as you operate above board, you never have to worry about anything. So anyway, in that situation, I believe what they were trying to do was to get Charles to accept 33,000 emails that the FBI could then come and say, ooh, this is espionage, you've received stolen material, and then to further say, oh, by the way, these are fake. And then anybody saying anything about hacked Hillary Clinton emails could say, oh yeah, that's been debunked, those were fake emails. So this is kind of like a standard trick these guys use. When something damaging to them is exposed, like Hillary Clinton is using an illegal email server, or drones are flying over Charlie Kirk's murder, they've got to get right up to the story and control it and own it and get in there to muddy the water. Fake emails, fake drones, that's what they're trying to do. So when I saw Blake, because when I first contacted Blake, I figured, okay, here's another guy who's finding drones. Maybe this will be helpful. Maybe he's found more drones. We'll work with this guy. And I initially sent him a comment on Twitter. He had an image where he said, oh, here's a drone flying out of a vent. And I said, I don't think it's flying out of the vent. It's just the first frame, it's off camera. And then bing, the first frame it's on camera, and then it's here, and then it's there. So I said, I don't think it's flying out of a vent. And he gave me a really rude response, like, oh, you can't just, I unblocked him to interact with the account. And his response right away was, you can't just come over here, unless you offer a better theory. And I said, listen, first of all, I can do whatever I want. And now I think I realize, I remember why I blocked you, you're a jerk. So I went through his 20 some odd drone identifications, and as it turns out, every single one of them was either a bird or an insect. The only drones that were found in the video were the ones that I found. So, like I said earlier today, I was on redacted, and I was able to share with Clayton what I think the drones were doing. Everybody knows I appreciate John Cullen's research and his intelligence. I just don't agree with him that we have sufficient evidence to conclude that Charlie Kirk was shot by a drone. In fact, I think there's a lot of problems in terms of physics to presume that a tiny little drone that could fly that quickly would have the capability to shoot a projectile, stay in the air, not be heard, not be seen. I just think there's some other mistake happening. Either the audio files that his crack thump calculations relied upon were manipulated, and that's what I'm saying. Evidence is being manipulated. When John did those first calculations, we only had one video that we understood the chain of custody for, that one from Adam Bartholomew. I spoke to him, seemed like an honest guy, didn't have any ulterior motive, told me this is the original file, sent me the file, sent me the metadata. It matched up to the file that he had uploaded. His everything about him checked out. So short of going into court and raising his right hand and swearing under penalty of perjury that this was legitimate evidence, for the sake of a crowdsourced investigation, I consider that authenticated evidence. All this other stuff that people are just ripping from Twitter or YouTube or TikTok or third generation video that somebody got from YouTube and put onto Twitter and put onto TikTok, we don't know how those things have been manipulated. And when I say manipulated, I don't even necessarily mean to imply that they're being maliciously tampered with. I'm saying that there's a lot of people who do a lot of things to digital files and they don't necessarily know what they're doing. They can transcode the audio, they can transcode the video, they can change the frame rate. I did a video last night with Zeb where we spoke about the fact that a video that he shared with me last week, which was shared with him by somebody he doesn't know, was a 20 frame per second video, and how unusual that was and how suggestive it was that somewhere out there is another much better, and when I say better, I mean from an evidentiary standpoint, a much better video that would help us understand what's going on in a much better way. I'm not even going to begin to approach the myriad ways in which a malicious party that wanted to deceive you with a manipulated video could do it, but obviously there are a lot of ways. So back to our friend Blake. He released a video last night, which was, it's making waves. It's, never before seen video of a new angle of Charlie Kirk getting shot. And that's not exactly correct. The video was seen before. The video had been released on the UVU Campus News website, which is called UVU Review. This is their YouTube channel right here. And when they put it out, they cover Charlie's face. They don't want to show you the grisly details of him getting shot. He's there talking, and then it blurs out his face, he's shot, and the video ends. What Blake has now presented is the unredacted version of that video that may well be the full and complete, exactly as it was photographed, nothing changed about it. It may well be that. It might be the original video untampered. But the issue is the way he went about it. He said he found the students that were in the video and paid them to give him the video. So that doesn't really make sense. Either I misunderstood what he said, or he said something that wasn't entirely true, because that video is not the property of any students who appeared in it. It's the property of the university and the UVU Review, which is, this is a state-funded, federally funded university that is subject to Utah's GRAMA laws, which are the equivalent of FOIA. And so what I'm getting at is, just like Charles Ortel did not want to receive illicitly obtained emails, because Charles is smart enough to know that if something goes sideways on whatever it is that he's doing, this problem with how you obtain it could lead to a bigger problem. Now, so first of all, Blake has now implicated each of these people in a whole lot of trouble. Because how did this thing, someone might lose their job over this. And you might say, well, justice for Charlie is more important than somebody's job. But the issue is, it's not like it's been 2 years and we haven't seen this video. It's been 2 weeks, and there's a process underway. I have filed a grammar request. I'm pretty sure Ken Silva filed a grammar request, and we might have obtained that file legally and legitimately. What that would do is that would preserve the chain of custody. It was a legally obtained file, officially granted by the university. That's very important, because I hope that people will read this article that I put on X. It's called Irresponsible and Likely Illegal: An Attack on Independent Journalism and Justice for Charlie Kirk. Because that is what this is. What this has done, he's bribed someone. He said he paid someone to get this footage. So that immediately calls into question the motive of the person who provided the footage, because as I said, even an employee of that UVU review doesn't own the footage. It's owned by the university. These are all federal statutes that dictate, unauthorized computer access of a federal entity, which that university is. It's funded by federal tax money, at least in part. So Blake is a little bit of a stupid idiot who has just engaged in a pretty serious crime, subjected whoever he coerced into providing that video for money into doing a crime. If they accessed that computer file without proper authorization from the school newspaper, website, blog, whatever that is, that person could have been violating the law. And Blake has now put himself into a conspiracy to violate federal laws. Now, I'm not making this video right now because I give a portion of a shit about what happens to Blake. It's what this does to the rest of us who are trying to conduct independent journalism in a legitimate way. It undermines the entire profession, because it makes anybody who's doing this, journalism on X and on YouTube and whatever, it makes us look like opportunistic, clout-chasing idiots, or at least it gives the university and judges who preside over grammar and stuff like that, it gives them an excuse to say, that's what you guys all are. Look at this improper release of this file. Additionally, and far more seriously, that could have been evidence ultimately in a trial against whoever it is that may get prosecuted for murdering Charlie Kirk. And now I guarantee whoever opposes that is going to say, well, the chain of custody is in question because this piece of evidence was released and it's unknown if this is real or this other one is real or whatever. It introduces a huge amount of complications. And so, the other issue is, for anybody who might be doubting what I'm saying about Blake, I went into this Twitter space with these guys last night that was run by Ryan Mata. I want people to listen to this for a second.
I would love for you to go into that crowdsource if you don't mind, and so we can get everybody's take on it. Because
did you know that crowdsource is a Jew? Just want to throw that out there.
So, how does that mean?
Because he wasn't shot with a drone, and he's trying to tell us drones, and now we know the device is on his neck.
I never said.
Was he a Jew?
Coyote is not a Jew.
Is he a self-hating Jew or a Jew? Just like a
people. Let's the coincidence, right? The convince.
Can people believe that that's the way they conduct a conversation? That Ryan would say that? What does that have to do with any information that I might be providing? I mean, that was one of the most loathsome and offensive things I've ever personally been subjected to, but it says a lot about Ryan and his objectivity. The other issue is, see, they are now trying to get on top of this evidence and say, oh, Jason's trying to convince people that Charlie Kirk was shot by a drone. I've never said that. I said that drones were there conducting ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. I've said that a drone engaged in electronic warfare to shut down Adam Bartholomew's live stream. It was John Cullen who insists that Charlie was shot by a drone. I don't think that happened. It might have, but I haven't seen sufficient evidence to convince me that that is what happened. So it's interesting that these guys are conflating what John says with what I say, but it's also interesting that they've arrived at the conclusion that they now know that something exploded on Charlie's neck. They're saying that the microphone, the DJI microphone that he was using, according to them, is an explosive device prepared by the same people who made the pagers that exploded on Hamas and killed them. They think that's evidence that the microphone killed Charlie Kirk. But when I saw those Hamas guys who got blown up by pagers, their faces were burned, their fingers were exploded off. Don't explosive devices create heat and smoke and chemical residue? Why don't we see any of that all over Charlie Kirk's shirt? And they'll say, oh, Jason's a Jew, he's defending the Mossad. No, I'm not. I'm looking at the evidence, and if it leads to that conclusion, I'll absolutely support it. I'm just saying, I see certain people out there who start with a conclusion and then look for evidence to satisfy their conclusion. And when they are the same people who are lying about other evidence, claiming that they found it, claiming that things that aren't evidence are evidence, I see someone trying to manipulate the narrative. Now, there's another important detail I forgot to mention about our friend Blake. And I use the term friend sarcastically because he's not a friend. He's an insane person. I know he lied about how he obtained that footage, or how he determined that there were drones in the footage, because I have tried to get ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and Grok to do what he described. He said he analyzed the video frame by frame, that he loaded frames in there, okay? So that would mean that he took an 1 and 7-minute video, output it as individual frames, which that's gonna be 120 some odd thousand individual files. Grok can only take 2 files at a time. Gemini, I think, has a similar limitation. The biggest is ChatGPT, which can take 10 at a time. And that would mean you'd have to, in batches of 10, load in sequence without messing up the sequence. You would have to load in 124,000 or 127,000. You can do the math. It's over 100,000 individual files that would have to be loaded in sequence. You'd have to instruct it to don't make any mistakes at all, ChatGPT, which anybody who's used it knows that it can make mistakes. And you'd have to tell it to aggregate each of these as sequential frames, understand it's from a 30 frame per second sequence of 1 hour and 7 minutes, and tell me at what timestamp each dot, anomalous dot in the clear sky, appears. And by the way, I checked each and every one of his timestamps. They were very accurate to where those drones appear. And it's actually quite impressive. I don't doubt that some sort of AI was used to do that, but I don't think it's AI that he has access to. In fact, it's such a sophisticated thing to do, it's highly suggestive that someone like, but not necessarily this exact person, someone like Palmer Luckey, a billionaire, high-tech person who has access to AI and computers and people who can write software and all kinds of military software and hardware that tracks things in the sky. It's possible that they have some AI software tool that can do what Blake was describing, but there's literally no way that he did it with ChatGPT. And what's nice is I had an opportunity to challenge him on that. Let's hear what Blake said when I asked him how you did it and can we learn more about your process. I was able to do that on their X space last night.
I have one question for Mr. Blake. He told Redacted, Clayton and Natalie, that he used AI to identify drones in the video, and I am going to say I do not believe that at all. Blake, please tell us what AI software you used to do that and specifically how you did it, because I think that is a lie, and I'd like you to prove me wrong.
No, I didn't ask it to identify drones. I asked it to identify a black speck, any specks in the sky that was crystal clear blue.
What AI did you use? Which tool was that?
I threw it into ChatGPT.
Really?
Frames. Yeah.
Well, what was your prompt? Because I did that and it said, oh, I can't read a video file like that. Sorry.
I don't know. I'll be more than no.
Can you reproduce that and just do a screen capture of you asking ChatGPT to? Because I did exactly what you just said. I said, can you read this video? Here's a YouTube link. Can you read this video and find anomalous dots, find individual things? It said, I don't have the ability. I posted about this
You can't do it with a YouTube
I
link. I'll
tried
just
to
tell you
But
that right
also,
now.
ChatGPT is a little tricky. It works for everybody a little differently. But go ahead,
Oh,
continue.
Well,
did you
Yeah,
download it
like
and then put it
first
in?
off,
Okay.
dude, you and that other vile piece of shit.
I
I
have
don't owe
nothing
you
to
two
do with him. I'm
motherfuckers
not his
anything.
agent.
Fuck both
Oh
of
shit.
you,
I have
okay?
nothing
I
to
don't
do
owe
with
you a
Damn.
motherfucking thing, bitch.
Hey, Blake,
Hold
he's
on a
gone, dude.
second.
I can't stand that fucking dude either. He was calling me a
Okay.
Fed, talking a bunch of shit about me.
So there we go. We went from, I'll do a Zoom call with you to prove this, to I don't owe you a thing, bitch, in about 2 seconds. So I don't think he's going to do a Zoom call with me to prove that, but that was Ryan who hung up the phone on me. I don't believe I've ever called Ryan a Fed. I think I've called him an asshole, and I think he is one. But he's going to have to find where I've called him a Fed. I don't think I've ever called him a Fed. The other interesting thing about Blake is that when he first showed up last week with his drone coming out of an event and I made a comment, I noticed that he had tagged George Webb in his reply to me, but then he deleted it. I found that interesting because everybody knows who watches this show that George Webb and his mentally ill, wife-swapping, hog-fucking, paperclip Nazi brother have been up my ass for the past 8 years. This is not a Twitter beef. This is not a journalistic rivalry where I'm jealous that he's scooping a story. This is me trying to explain to everyone that I believe, I haven't proven these things in court yet, but I believe that these individuals are involved in a sophisticated operation to deceive people, to keep the truth away from people, and who would be motivated to pay them? Well, again, I haven't proven this, and I don't know that this person is paying them, but it certainly seems like a billionaire who owns a military drone company who doesn't seem to like what I'm saying about drones could easily scare up a few $100,000 to pay a bunch of idiots to do all this kind of stuff. Blake says he's an insurance, he runs an insurance agency is what he told Natalie and Clayton on Redacted. How could you have time to do all this stuff if you were running your own insurance agency? I've run a lot of different companies of mine, and they occupy all my time. Now, if he said he just closed his insurance agency and he's in the process of becoming an independent journalist, maybe that would be plausible. Maybe. I don't really think so. And he didn't even say that that's what he's doing. But yet suddenly we've got Ryan Mata telling his 250,000 followers, you got to follow this guy, so important what he's doing. He obviously is aware of me, but he doesn't want to say, well, you know what? Look at this, Jason's found drones and this guy has found drones. It's almost like they're substituting Blake's information for my information, almost like a switcheroo. They don't want you to look at what I'm looking at. They want to tamp down what I'm talking about and elevate what Blake is talking about. And the reason I wanted to make this video was to let everybody know that this is a very important and insidious thing that's happening. So some people were giving me comments on X and elsewhere like, oh, why are you calling for his prosecution? Well, the answer is, if he's going to get in there in important crimes and mess around with evidence by doing things that are illegal and try to obscure the truth from the public and try to feed everyone lies, I think that's a person who deserves to face justice and deserves to be made an example of. Like I said, these guys have been trying to destroy my life. They've been trying to destroy my ability to earn a living. And so this is not a joke for me. This is people who are attacking me. They want me to go to jail. Does everybody remember the Port of Charleston? That was not a joke. If that had gone the way they wanted it to go, I could have been on trial for 5 years. I could have lost every cent I've ever earned. My family would have been destroyed. I could have spent time in jail. Who knows what would have happened to me there. This is not a joke. This is not a game. If Blake were on the level, he would do that Zoom call with me and he would show me. Here's how I did it. He doesn't even remember the prompt. The truth of the matter is the specific prompt doesn't matter. What matters is what was the process. If he had said, oh, well, what you don't know, Jason, is I'm a super expert programmer and I don't just run an insurance company. I wrote the whole entire database for my insurance company. I'm actually a genius software developer. So I wrote a Python script in a weekend and all this custom software that aggregated the output of ChatGPT and made a bunch of agents that did X, Y, and Z. You know, if he had some sort of coherent explanation, maybe it could have been plausible, but he just said things like, I don't know, I don't remember, and fuck you, I don't owe you anything. And he became angry. So my whole thing is, anything that I'm talking about, I'll answer a question about. If Ryan Mata thinks I called him a Fed, please locate that video or tweet where I allegedly did that, because I don't believe I did that. I don't think I said that. That might be something that John Cullen said, but John Cullen doesn't speak for me, and I don't like it when people say, oh, that guy's a Fed, that guy's a spook. I've said that George Webb's brother appears to be, my opinion, based on information and belief and public domain evidence I've seen, is that he was working for the NIH. And I say that because I found evidence on an NIH website, an employee staff directory, that had his name on it. And it's a pretty unique name. And when I did a video like this about it, the next day or 2 days later, whatever it was, that name disappeared and that whole entire website said access denied. I've never seen the US government act more quickly than that. And in my view, that evidence caused me to believe that he was in direct contact with whoever it was at the NIH that controlled that web page, and he told them to take it down. That could be wrong, but they haven't presented evidence that proves that that's wrong. So what I'm saying is, if Ryan says I called him a Fed, instead of just believing that, because I think it's a lie, say, Ryan, where did he call you a Fed? Where is that tweet? Where is that video? If Blake says he loaded frames into ChatGPT, explain to us how you did that, Blake. Make a video showing you, here's my database that controls all the frames, correlates the frame numbers to time, you know, hours and minutes and seconds, because he gave us a whole pretty detailed timestamp list of every single one of the drones that he found, and he said, oh, check my work. I did. I checked the work. This is like a magic trick that Blake is doing. And if you don't understand the modus operandi of the trick, it seems quite impressive. But the fact is, he is a malicious liar. And I don't know why he's lying, but it's clear that he is. So I'd like to know the truth, the answers to some of these questions. Oh yeah, so here's the other important thing. So John Cullen and I eventually realized that the person speaking in this video about the ISR plane was Blake. Now, at the time that we made the video, we didn't know it was Blake. So here's something similar to the 33,000 email trick. Blake puts out a video, doesn't say, hey, I'm Blake, here's my, Twitter thing, watermarked on the video, doesn't say his name, he just puts out a video with his voice and screen captures of Flight Radar 24, where he mispronounces Bombardier. Somebody who John doesn't know, anonymous user on Twitter, sends him the video and says, hey John, this is interesting. Anybody who watches John Cullen for 5 minutes would know that he's pretty likely to be interested in a video like that and would look into it and follow up on it. So John brings it on the show with me. He says, I don't know who this is, who did this research. I don't know who sent it to me, but this is amazing research. This guy is a genius. I'd like to congratulate him and bring him on the show. And then something like 4 days later, 5 days later, after our video starts blowing up, Blake starts saying, oh, John Cullen stole my video, and John and Jason are taking credit for my video. That wasn't true at all. So that's the setup. You plant some information on someone, a video that shows 25 drones, a video with research about an ISR airplane, a zip file with 33,000 emails in it. Then that person gets it and does what you expect them to do with it. And then you spring the surprise. Oh, those are stolen fake emails. Oh, that's a video that I made. Oh, those aren't drones, those are insects. That's what these guys are trying to do. So the reason why I put out this article calling for Blake's prosecution and pointing out the numerous state and federal laws that he may have broken. I don't know. He might have been lying when he said he paid a student for this video. Someone's going to have to figure out how he got this video. I'm not going to be that someone. It might be a U.S. attorney for the state of Utah. I don't know. I'm not in charge of prosecuting people, but I can tell you if I was, I would start prosecuting Blake because I think he's a troublemaker. And I don't think that he's interested in figuring out who killed Charlie Kirk. I think he's working to cover that up. So that's why I put out that article. That's why I'm calling for his prosecution. And that's why I've made this video right now, to help everybody understand why I did that. That wasn't a malicious, vindictive attack on Blake. That's me trying to protect myself, trying to protect honest journalism, and trying to protect the integrity of evidence linked to the murder of Charlie Kirk. Everything Blake did goes in the opposite direction of all of that. He's a terrible guy. He's a terrible liar. And I welcome him to refute anything I've said in this video. People who watch Blake and think I'm an idiot, or see this video and think that I'm, vindictively doing something against Blake because I'm a Jew or for whatever reason you think, should ask Blake. He doesn't even need to get on a Zoom call with me. He should produce a video that shows how he did all this. The exporting of frames, the tracking of all these anomalous dots. That's a complicated piece of work. I think you would need a team, or you'd need to yourself be the most exceptional video processing software programmer. Why would you be running an insurance agency if you had the capability to write software and do a task like that in a weekend? You should be living in Burbank and working on visual effects in Hollywood or something. Working for Anduril, perhaps? That might be useful. They have a need to track a lot of drones, I think. Anyway, that's basically the gist of what I wanted to tell everyone. So I'm sorry to the people who I respect who are upset by that, but trust me, I did it to protect the integrity of what you're doing, what I'm doing, and what everybody wants to see as the outcome of this Charlie Kirk murder investigation, which is for the perpetrators to be brought to justice, not for them to perpetrate yet another social engineering scam that prevents us from learning the truth. I hope I've clarified that, and I hope that people will sponsor this show, because it's very difficult for me to do this work and they're trying to stop me all the time. You can go to crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. You can read that article there as well. The article is free, but you can subscribe on there and sponsor the show and access lots of sponsor-exclusive content. You can also go to subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, or follow me on X @JG_CSTT. Subscribe there, sponsor the show, and have a great night, everybody. Thanks for watching.